As a Western world, we have a clear interest in a strong, stable, healthy and prosperous Iran, not under the regime. And it's a strong interest of ours, of the Western world, not just Israel, but also the US and Europe, to have a strong relationship with the Iranian people. With that said, you're not able to bring down the regime without hurting the regime. And this, a kind of plaster argument stating that, yes, we can't help you, the regime saying we can't help you because we're under sanctions, is complete, nonsense. Because at the end of the day, they are able to build their own weapons. They are able to build their own missile program, and they are enriching, some sort, or at least, before the war, before the 12-day war, they were enriching some sort of, nuclear facilities. So this argument, in my opinion, is complete nonsense. And as I said, the interest of the regime is not the citizens. It's of regaining power from the loss they suffered in the 12-day war. It's enforcing their base within the Iranian people. And you see it also with the demonstrations, because a few days after the demonstrations happened, Pezeshkian, the Iranian president, went out to the press and said, yes, it's our battle together, we'll fix it together. And you also see it with the fact that the Iranian government now says we're going to hand out $7 for each family, which is equivalent of 10,500,000, I think, riyals, as an assistance to the citizens themselves. What is $7 for the citizens of Iran? It doesn't help them anyway. How can they buy milk? How can they buy bread? It doesn't even matter even if they buy the milk and bread, because they don't have electricity at home. That's the main point. The people of Iran shall decide their own fate. It seems that they don't want the regime. I wish them the best of luck in making sure that the regime will fall. And I sincerely hope there will come a day that Iranians will visit us in Tel Aviv and we'll come visit them in Tehran.
Hello and welcome to our podcast East to West, and today we're speaking again with Ella Rosenberg, Senior Fellow on Counter Terrorism Financing, focusing on Iran at the JCFA. Hello, Ella.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. And we're speaking just a few days after this military operation in Venezuela.
Surprising military operation.
Very surprising. But it was also surprising for the Iranians. How are they affected right now after the change, let's call it, in Venezuela?
The regime change in Venezuela.
I'm not sure we can call it a regime change.
I'm not sure if we can call it a regime change, but let me put it this way. If you would call Khamenei right now and ask him how he's doing, I wouldn't say he's doing the best, mentioning the issue in Venezuela, mainly because there are a lot of similarities between Venezuela and Iran. One of those similarities is that they're very strong trade partners, especially in oil and in minerals and in other things. And regarding their regime perspective on how to handle citizens and how to handle foreign affairs, if they're quite similar, I would call them brothers by choice. To an extent.
But the Iranians were helping the Venezuelans also with their oil industry. How is that going to affect right now financially the Iranians?
It's mainly oil trade. So if you look at currently, what's going on within the oil trade from Iran to Venezuela, I would say that it is hindered because not only the president and his wife has been arrested and now they're awaiting trial in New York, but it creates instability within the country itself. And then the entire issue of trade, not specifically with Iran, but other countries as well, might face significant turbulence, yes.
And also the presence of Hezbollah and other Iranian-backed groups in South America in general, but specifically in Venezuela, is affected right now. How did that work, and how is that going to affect also Hezbollah right now?
Well, Hezbollah, you need to bear in mind, first and foremost, it's a proxy of the Iranian regime. So once something is affected in Iran, it affects all of its proxies. I would say that's specific for Hezbollah because it's been weakened during the war itself. It's become much more weakened during the war itself. I would say this is a huge blow to them, whether it's for their arms trade, for their human trafficking trade, for any sort of trade.
But was Venezuela used for money laundering?
Mainly
drug
arms.
trade.
Drug trade and arms. That's the majority of the work that has been done there. But bear in mind that, terror groups always find a way to regroup themselves and always find a way to reinforce their power. So it's a very interesting time to live in, to see how things will unravel in Venezuela.
Yes, definitely. And not only in Venezuela, but also what's happening in Iran. I mean, we're talking now we are into the second week of the protest in Iran. And this whole thing started because of economical difficulties
Not
in
just,
Iran.
but yes.
Yes, I mean, that's the main thing, because we saw that it came from the sellers and the markets and inside Tehran, and now it's spreading. And the question that bears itself here is, why is that? Because after all, we're talking about a country rich in oil, rich in gas, but the infrastructure for that is the issue here. Is it because of corruption? Is it because of mismanagement?
I think I would define it, first of all, as infrastructure for the citizens, which is electricity, water, gas, anything that has to do for the vitality and also for the well-being of the citizens. That's one part of infrastructure. Second part of infrastructure has to do with how things are managed or mismanaged currently within Iran. Now, if you look at the protests as a whole, you can see that there has become this sort of bizarre holy trinity when it comes to the revolts themselves, because you see that on the one hand, you have the issue of infrastructure that has become very, very severe. You don't have enough electricity. You don't have enough water. Currently, the temperature in Tehran is between 0 to 2 degrees Celsius, something that is not, that has been before in Tehran. It's a normal kind of temperature to have in Tehran during the winter time, but they're not able to handle it. So that's one problem. The second problem is the surge of the dollar, because currently $1 is 1,400,000 reals, meaning that the buying leverage of citizens has become significantly less powerful. And in addition to that, you have the entire issue of the infrastructure to the citizens. So it has become a situation that even if you sit at home and you don't want, to go to buy something or purchase something or just walk around the street, you can't even sit at home because you're cold.
But shouldn't Iran be just self-sufficient because of its richness in resources in general?
It should, but you need to bear in mind that even if you're self-sufficient when it comes to minerals, and Iran is a very rich country in minerals. It has gold, it has lead, it has copper, it has sulfates, it has coal. The amount of, if you look at the distribution of minerals and metals, heavy metals within Iran, it's very rich in it. One of the most blessed countries with these kinds of materials. But bear in mind that these kinds of minerals, you have to dig them out of the ground, either by open mining or by digging very deep. And for that, you need another kind of infrastructure. You need to make sure that you have certain equipment to take the minerals out of the ground, to blow the explosives in order to do the open mining. You need to have an entire, not only infrastructure, but you need to have the entire, process as a mechanism working. And I don't think this is something that they're able to do right now, because the majority of their focus is, again, building rockets to make sure that they are either hitting us or the Western world at a certain point. The focus of the Iranian regime is not to enhance infrastructure. It's not to enhance the mining of minerals or the welfare of the citizens. It's just to build a sufficient and strong enough army to attack us at a certain point.
Yeah, there's definitely an issue of priority here for the Iranian regime, after all. But the other things that are not helping or preventing Iran from advancing into maybe developing this infrastructure, at least on a minimal level, is sanctions. What do you think the United States, Israel, the Western world that wants to put more pressure on Iran, the Iran regime, of course, right now should do in terms of sanctions?
I'm saying it time and time again. You need to enforce the sanctions. It's wonderful and it's great that sanctions are imposed, that they are published either by OFAC or by the European Council. But without enforcement, these sanctions are null. Now, if you look at the current type of sanctions that have been issued lately, and if you look at the revolts and the uprising happening in Iran right now, you can see that sanctions are working. Even at their minimum level that they are being enforced, the 5% that they are being enforced, imagine what would happen if 20% of them would have been enforced, or 30% of them would have been enforced. At the end of the day, it's not a matter of hindering the citizens, it's a matter of hindering the regime that's hindering the citizens and also the Western world. So if you enforce the sanctions on a more tighter basis, meaning that the banks should enforce them better, meaning that the maritime trade companies should enforce them better, meaning that the compliance officer at the bank that sees a specific transaction that might be suspicious, he should stop the transaction, not allow it. That's the main point of enforcement.
Just mentioned Venezuela. The U.S. did actually siege or blocked the areas outside of Venezuela's shore so it can actually implement those sanctions. Do you think that something of that sort can happen also in Iran physically? Because we're talking about a country that is very, very far away from the U.S.
Well, I'm not a prophet, but what I can say that the Venezuelan subject is very different from the Iranian one. Because on the one hand, Venezuela geographically is closer to the U.S. That's one thing. Second thing, Iran is not landlocked, but you have a significant amount of their borders, which is, it's land borders. So you can't just create a maritime siege. In addition to that, specifically for Venezuela, and one of the reasons, or the overwhelming reason that Trump did the arrest of Maduro is the fact that the drug trade has become a significant, hindrance to the U.S. policy, and this is why they did it. Regarding drugs in Iran, I don't think on the issue of drugs, the U.S. would come and blockade entire Iran, because Iran, as much as it's similar to Venezuela, it's also very different. It's very different. You had a president that's been changed in Venezuela within the past few years, also within the same line of the previous one of Chavez, but it's not the same. And the regime has been, intact for the past 45 years.
But we're still talking about sanctioning oil or oil companies in Venezuela, yes, which is the same thing that is happening in Iran. Yet in Venezuela, the U.S. just recently started actually imposing those sanctions.
And enforcing them, yes.
And on the other hand, in Iran, they just do whatever they want. They sell their oil to the Chinese. They can continue their, more or less, of course. So is there something physically that can actually happen in the Gulf, maybe stopping those oil tankers much more than what is happening right now?
Stopping oil tankers is extremely difficult. You can't just blow up oil tankers, in the middle of the ocean. You can't do that. At the end of the day, and this is what's, in my opinion, wonderful about economic warfare, it's a great method of preventing problems before they happen. One of the ways of preventing these problems, and specifically for the Iran and China oil trade, is the SHIP Act that has been imposed in the U.S. by Congress a few months ago, which essentially tries to create a hindrance or some sort of iron wall between Iran and China when it comes to the oil trade. You can say at a certain point that it is, becoming effective, because if you look at the Chinese regulation that has come out recently when it comes to they call it some sort of green energy regulation in order to prevent the discourse between Iran and China and the entering of ghost fleets into Chinese borders and into Chinese ports as well. But at the end of the day, you see that it doesn't work, because it was a way to create a facade for the Americans to show that, yes, we're not allowing oil tankers above the age of 15 years old to come into the ports only with specific goods. And they try to create this facade. But at the end of the day, it's not really, it doesn't really help, because you do have certain tankers that are less than 15 years old. You do have certain tankers that issue other types of goods. So you don't really know how to pinpoint the question. But coming back to your main point, to see if you can, I think it comes back to the issue of enforcement. There has to be a specific method in order to enforce these sanctions. There has to be a specific methodology. And up until now, it hasn't happened yet.
And how much the Chinese are helping with that, especially with their Road and Belt Initiative, other projects, corporations?
Well, the Belt and Road Initiative, I think, is one of the most ambitious initiatives the Chinese have had within the past few years. It's a way of, first of all, circumventing sanctions, because if you have this Belt and Road Initiative that you can transfer goods either by land or by sea to other member states within this initiative, it's creating some may say, some sort of backlash to the Abraham Accords. Because the Abraham Accords, if you look at it, it's an initiative of the U.S., of Israel, of the Gulf countries, and they're not under sanction, these countries. But if you look at the Chinese method, trying to circumventing the sanctions is the way that once you are able to transfer the goods from China to Iran, for instance, or from China, to India, to other parts of the world that are under increased scrutiny, you are able to circumvent these changes. And Iran is a major stakeholder in that because, first of all, geographically, it's right in the middle of Asia. So it's very easy to China to transfer the goods there. In addition to that, it's also very close to Kazakhstan, which is a logistics base specifically for the Belt and Road Initiative. So it's creating some sort of tension between the US and China when it comes to the trade wars.
Many people criticize those sanctions by saying that they hurt the people of Iran, which I assume the US and Western allies don't want to happen eventually. On the other hand,
I don't think the Western allies want to hinder the citizens of.
On the other hand, it is actually helping, according to this criticism, of course, the regime to just say that we don't need to do anything because we're just under sanctions and it's the West fault. And even some of the regime factions are actually gaining money and gaining wealth and gaining more power because of those sanctions. Do you agree with that?
No, because as a Western world, we have a clear interest in a strong, stable, healthy, and prosperous Iran, not under the regime. And it's a strong interest of ours, of the Western world, not just Israel, but also the US and Europe, to have a strong relationship with the Iranian people. With that said, you're not able to bring down the regime without hurting the regime. And this, a kind of plaster argument stating that, yes, we can't help you, the regime saying we can't help you because we're under sanctions, is complete, nonsense. Because at the end of the day, they are able to build their own weapons. They are able to build their own missile program, and they are enriching, some sort, or at least, before the war, before the 12-day war, they were enriching some sort of, nuclear facilities. So this argument, in my opinion, is complete nonsense. And as I said, the interest of the regime is not the citizens. It's of regaining power from the loss they suffered in the 12-day war. It's enforcing their base within the Iranian people. And you see it also with the demonstrations, because a few days after the demonstrations happened, Pezeshkian, the Iranian president, went out to the press and said, yes, it's our battle together, we'll fix it together. And you also see it with the fact that the Iranian government now says we're going to hand out $7 for each family, which is equivalent of 10,500,000, I think, riyals, as an assistance to the citizens themselves. It's nothing. What is $7 for the citizens of Iran? It doesn't help them anyway. How can they buy milk? How can they buy bread? It doesn't even matter even if they buy the milk and bread because they don't have electricity at home. That's the main point.
And what's the opportunity here? Because when it comes to Venezuela, we go back to Venezuela every single time because this is the recent development. We see that the U.S., or at least the Trump administration, did emphasize the opportunity here, the oil, the minerals, and, the cooperation. When it comes to Iran, what's the opportunity for the U.S.? What's the opportunity for the West? Not only in terms of oil and gas, especially gas for the Europeans, I would say, but other resources.
Into India, something that I've been exploring recently is the relations between Iran and India. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic a bit, but it is important. India and Iran have a very interesting relationship because on the one hand, India is trying to be part of the Western world and trying to enforce sanctions. But on the other hand, they're still working on Iran plenty of projects on gas, on oil. And even if you see the way that the Europeans are purchasing gas from India vis-a-vis Iran, you see that they have a clear interest in making sure that they have their own status quo, as per se, settled to that effect. With that said, you can see the recent terror attack that happened in India, a few weeks ago, and it comes to light to see how Iran is trying to also infiltrate other countries that they have some sort of status quo relationship with. Coming back to your original point on the issue of trade and how to make sure that the regime itself is able to not only sustain itself, but make sure that they come out of it, I don't see a way that they can. What's going on in Iran specifically within the past few days is a very good start for the demolishing of the regime. It's a very good start for the people of Iran to try and find a method in which they can have, first of all, a proper governance and a proper governmental system. But also it's a very good way for them to see what they want as people. I hear many, researchers speak about the fact that, yes, maybe we should do this with Iran and that with Iran. And I keep saying it's not our position to say. The people of Iran shall decide their own fate. The opportunity is for the people of Iran, first and foremost. Second, it's for us as the Western world. If you look at the relations between the people of Iran and the Western world, you can see it as a joint initiative in which the Western world is able to a certain extent help the people of Iran create a situation in which the regime will fall. But I think that is a good way of working methodology only after the regime will fall. I think it's best of interest for the people of Iran to demolish the regime themselves. Because at the end of the day, once it will fall, and it's not a matter of if it will happen, but when it will happen, the Iranian people need to be fully understanding, and they need to fully come to terms with the fact that they did it without outside intervention. Only after that happens, we can see how the Western world, and specifically the US and Europe and other European countries, and also Israel, are able to help Iran pull through to the next day, pull through to, the day after. People are constantly talking about the day after in Gaza. No one's talking about the day after in Iran, which is much more severe than the day after in Gaza. Because if you remember, Gaza is being controlled by Hamas, which is an Iranian proxy. If you demolish the regime, the day after in Iran will be much more severe than the day after in Gaza. And this is something that us as the Western world, we need to prepare to.
Ella Rosenberg, thank you so much again for being here with us and explaining all these things. A senior fellow on Counter Terrorism Financing, focusing on Iran at the JCFA. Thank you.
Thank you.